All right, welcome again to Talk of Christ, Faith, Family, and Adventure. I'm Steve Hunt, and I'm a seeker of light and truth. And I am joined today once again by Joe Lawless. And Joe, welcome. Thanks for coming back. So last time we talked about your journey into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We ended with your baptism, and that was 17 years ago.
16 years ago.
16 years ago. All right. So fill us in on what you've learned over the last 16 years, how your faith has grown, changed, adjusted, and anything else you want to tell us about your challenges or struggles with the faith or whatever else.
Great. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to meet again. It's always good to be able to share and to connect with like-minded people and to hopefully in some way help others who are navigating and like you said, seekers of truth as well. I joined the church. I was baptized back in 2005, and so that brings us to the present day. I've learned a lot over that time. I've grown a lot, and I'm grateful for that. So when I joined the church, I was 17 years old. I didn't serve a mission until I was 20. And part of that was me learning more about the faith and making sure I understand, the doctrines and that I'm ready to go, proselytize and make sure that my family as well is ready for that opportunity. But there were other personal reasons that I needed to take care of as well that were pressing before I was able to serve a mission. I ended up being able to serve a mission in the England, London South mission. And I absolutely loved my mission. That was an incredibly rewarding time in my life. It was the first time where I was really immersed in a kind of spiritual setting, if you will, being raised without really a particular faith or anything. It was just always, on my own, whatever I did, having that structure in my mission really kind of helped me think more clearly and to see how I can structure my life, my time a little bit better. And just that constant being surrounded by the feelings of the spirit of learning and growing with another person who I didn't choose to be with, right? And it allowed me to develop myself, my interpersonal skills and communication skills as well.
What's the first story that comes to your mind when I ask what instance or what situation in your mission was the most powerful, the most exciting? What story jumps to your head?
There's two stories. The very first one that jumps to my head is I don't want to label this or say this in the wrong way, but I had a lot of companions on my mission. I had a lot of companions who were struggling, who didn't know if they wanted to be there or were having a hard time. And so I had a lot of companions not all of them, but a lot of companions that I got to serve with who I got to learn about them and their experiences a little bit more and try to help them out and understanding why they were there on a mission and help them maybe get into more of a routine than they had previously had or whatever. I had one companion who struggled with mental illness. And there was one time where we were just about to start a companion study. He said, "I need to call the president." I said, "Okay." So I handed him the phone and he called the mission president and came back a few minutes later and the mission president was on the phone and speaking with me. And he said, "I need you to go into I need you to go into a separate room with your companion." At the time I was sharing our flat, our apartment. And so I went with this companion to a different room and he said, essentially that I needed to cast out an evil spirit from my companion. That was crazy. And I was very nervous and afraid because I was like, well, this is really kind of deep. This is kind of strange. But it was the first time where I really, I think, truly felt sincerely that I had priesthood power, that I had command over than this worldly sphere that we have. That to me was very powerful, and a special, a sacred experience. So I don't know that I'll go much deeper into that, but having that experience that I thought was, that's a scripture thing, that's something that you don't really do, that doesn't really happen. But the fact that I went through that experience for me was very eye-opening, and kind of changed my perspective as far as spirituality, and that there is light and dark, that I believe that the priesthood has been restored, and that I hold that priesthood, and that priesthood is real and powerful, and that I can use it in powerful ways. Not that I always have to, but that I have the ability to, and as I maintain a level of my own integrity, worthiness, faithfulness, that it allows access to that. So that's the first experience. I don't know if you have questions or anything about that, but the other experience.
The only thing that comes to my mind as you're telling the story is that just this week in my own personal scripture study, I was reading from 1 Samuel, and came across the story of King Saul being troubled by an evil spirit, and David being able to help him in that time with his harp playing. And I don't have much to relate or to say there, except that it's interesting that I came across that. I mean, that we all have these times of, you prefaced it by saying that your companion struggled with some, how did you say it? Some
illness,
mental illness. But we get depression, we get, attacked by the discouragement and the overwhelming negative emotions of Lucifer. I believe that when we call Lucifer the father of lies, that we're referring in particular to his pernicious lie that we are worthless, that we are incapable of salvation, that we're incapable of the faith required for salvation, that we're unsavable, that we are not worthy, or that God would never want to save us because we've done so many terrible things. And the lies that Lucifer tells us are, you are not going to make it, and you are not enough, and you should just give up and take your own life, for instance, or whatever other lies he wants to tell us about the kind of garbage that he wants us to believe that we are. And that, I think everybody struggles a little bit with those lies. And casting out that. Moses on Sinai had that face-to-face interview with God. Yeah. And then he had the face-to-face interview with Lucifer, who said, Moses, son of man, worship me. Again, I think he might have said, Moses, you monkey brain, worship me because you're nobody. And Moses turned it right around and said, I'm a son of God in the image of the only begotten. And where is your glory that I should worship you? Go away. And that is casting out devils and casting out those lies, saying, no, I know who I am. I am a child of God. God loves me. He accepts me. And because of Jesus and the atonement of Christ, the only begotten, in whose image I am made, I am more than enough. So yeah, that's just my doctrinal response to those negative emotions. So anyway.
Yeah, and I get that, but it allowed me to know, that it really is okay to not be okay as well. And that I need to be more sensitive and compassionate, because everybody's carrying a burden. Everybody's struggling with something. At this very moment, you're struggling with something, I'm struggling with something, everybody is. And just being able to maybe keep that in the forefront of my mind, to not be as maybe judgmental or harsh or critical, and to realize that we're all going through something. So that was a powerful lesson that I learned. The other part of my mission is kind of an area that I served in. I served in a city called Eastbourne, which is on the coast near Brighton. If you read like Jane Eyre or something, she talks a lot about Brighton, going to Brighton and Hastings and stuff. But anyways, I loved that area. I had a lot of great experiences, met a lot of great people. There was a family that I met there. I had just transferred into the area, and they had just baptized a woman named Jessie. And she was just an incredible woman who, she was very fun. She was very understanding. She was just really kind of on fire, if you will, in a sense that, she loved the gospel and was excited to share that. I came to the picture, and her husband was not a member of the church. Her husband was not religious either, and neither was she. But I had the opportunity to do some service every once in a while. I'd go to her house to have a meal with her, or do some service, or help her husband out. His name is Chris. And after a time, Chris, seeing that we were there to serve, and seeing the change that came in his wife, was interested in, well, we got to teach him. And then a year later, had the opportunity in my mission. The London Temple was in my mission area, so I had the opportunity to go to the temple often, which I was very grateful for. And the pinnacle, the crowning event, was when I got to witness the sealing ceremony of these two members. That was incredibly powerful. That was a moment for me where it hit me that, again, I guess reiterated that this is really the whole point of all of this. This whole gospel is to unite families, not just here and now, not until just death do us part. And for me, that was one of my greatest desires. And so that's, those are lessons from a mission that I learned. And, again, I came across great people. I learned different ways of doing things. I had to struggle through things, because there were some times where, for instance, my companion and I had the same kind of idea, but the way that we articulated was different. And then we were just kind of talking past each other, and then, we joke about it and realize, oh, that's what I was saying. And they're like, no, that's not what you said, and so those were good experiences. I love my mission president and his wife. I loved being with them. While I was serving, President Monson was the prophet at the time, and he had actually asked my mission president's wife to write his autobiography. And so one thing that was really cool is that when we would come together in our zone conferences, when we would meet together regionally as missionaries, she would tell us, she was reading through his personal journals, and she would be telling us some of the stories that she came across and reading the prophets' personal journals. And that was really cool to have that experience, and to learn, I guess, to feel like he was my friend, or that I knew him more intimately than I did. And again, to see him as a human being as well was helpful. I came home from my mission, and I worked for a while. I didn't really think about college. I mean, I kind of did, but my dad didn't go to college, and nobody talked to me about college or anything. But I had friends that were going to school. They were going to BYU, Idaho. And one of my friend's moms was telling me, hey, my son needs a roommate. Do you want to go up and go to school there? And I was like, yeah, I guess I can check it out. And so I started filling out the application papers, and didn't quite make the deadline. And so I called up the admissions office, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I want to apply. I was trying to apply for the fall semester. And I was like, is there any way I can get in? And she was like, no, I'm sorry, it's fall's full, but you could apply for the spring semester, and so possibly get in. You would just fill out an appeals form, and if that was approved, then you could go to school. And I said, okay, well, let's do that. When does that start? And she had said it started in 2 weeks. And I was like, 2 weeks, like 14 days? And she's like, yes. And I was like, okay, thanks. Hung up the phone, filled out that appeals paper, called my work, put in my 2 weeks notice. I went to school. I drove out there. My friend Daniel Woodfield was going there, and I had drove him out there. I had a car and he didn't, so we had a little time to go on a road trip. I got to go there and visit campus a little bit, and it was a good experience. I liked the feeling there and the fact that I had friends there. And, I thought, okay, might as well. I liked kind of that it was a smaller setting. I do like people, but I wanted to make sure that I was focused on my studies and not, just socializing too much. So yeah, I mean, I went out to school there, and I didn't know exactly where I was going to stay and how that was going to work out and how I was going to pay for school. And I had like $400 in my bank account, and half of that went to paying for gas to get out there. And so I was, really, it was a leap of faith for me. I'm okay. I feel like this is what I'm doing. So, and it turned out to be a great thing. At the end of my first semester, I met my wonderful wife, your sister, and the timing worked out. I constantly see in my life the way that the Lord has kind of, I believe, guided and instructed, that maybe I did things differently than I would have chosen to do, or things that felt like not logical ended up working out. And, I had a lot of rich and rewarding experiences going to school at BYU, Idaho, learning, studying there, meeting my wife, getting married, having children. And one thing that was interesting, though, is living in Rexburg. It's a small town. It's more conservative, and it has a very high LDS population, Latter-day Saint population, and it's not a bad thing, but I feel struggling a little bit because I grew up in a big city setting. I grew up in a very diverse setting. I served a mission in a very kind of multinational place, big city. And so this is the first time where it's kind of small city. And so that was hard for me to kind of wrap my head around. And because of some of my own feelings, philosophies, personality quirks, whatever, it was sometimes a little bit hard fitting in or feeling like, I could be fully authentic. In Rexburg, because I felt like maybe people wouldn't fully understand, or they'd be harsh. And I don't know that that's true, because I never, I guess, opened up enough to allow that. But needed a little bit of a change as well. And so we moved out to Arizona, which is where we currently live. And it has been a good experience for us and a good move. And I've been able to meet a lot of people, and it's kind of a compromise. We live in a South Phoenix, greater Phoenix area, and it's kind of a smaller city, a little bit more rural, but also large enough that there's a lot of things to do. And so it's kind of a compromise for my wife and I. I don't know. I feel like maybe I might need some directions or questions to
yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing us up to date. Now, I guess the question that's here is, what's been the most challenging over your faith journey from the beginning till now? How is your family now? Your dad, your brother, and so forth, with regard to your faith?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second question first. It has been wonderful to see my family's views towards the church change as they see the kind of person that I am, the husband and the father, and just the man that I have become and am becoming. I think that has softened their hearts a lot. My wife and I got married in Logan, Utah. I live in California, and we rented a van and we drove. It was my aunt and my cousin, my brother and my father, and I drove in a van 12 hours to Logan, Utah for our ceremony where Jordan and I were going to be sealed in the temple, married in the temple. And that meant a lot to me, because, they weren't members. They weren't going to be able to go in and witness the experience, which was something that was sad. In fact, on the car ride there, my family was like, I was trying to tell them, that it's about families, and that's why. And my aunt, lovingly and sincerely, I think, was just like, don't really tell me about this is for families, because we're your family and we can't even go, and that doesn't seem right. And I sympathize with that. And that's a hard thing. I think there's a lot of people, converts or family members, who maybe aren't prepared or worthy to enter temple, that might have similar feelings. Certainly that was something that I understood. And I love the changes the church has made. And, now it's kind of saying, well, get married civilly first, and then you can have the sealing ceremony. I thought that's how they did in England. And I thought that would have been great. That would have been really nice. there are a lot of things and changes that are happening in the church now that I think are great moves, that I think are very powerful and important moves that are helping to move the work forward. Going back to your original question, and this might open up more questions. I am attracted to men. And so that has been a struggle from before I ever joined the church, certainly being a part of the church, deciding to be baptized, remaining faithful, has been a challenge just because I know that I'm different. I've always known that I was different, you know, you know, but as I mentioned, I think last time, you know, the spirituality has always been important to me. And that has always been something that has been, I guess, the greatest thing to me. And I haven't really shared this out a lot, and I'm allowing myself to become more vulnerable and more aware, and to share that, because I think that there are more people that are in the same boat. You know, and there are a lot of questions with that. Well, how do I make that work with my faith and the beliefs, and how am I married to a woman, and all those things, and I don't know that we'll have time today to cover all of those things. And if there are specific questions you have, we can look at them. But Jesus invited us to love one another. And that decree for me, I take very personally, and that's how I try to organize and live my life, imperfectly. But that's what I'm striving towards, is to love people where they're at and to help them and on their journey. I think that because of my own experiences, it's allowed me to really empathize with other individuals, to see and to know that we're carrying heavy burdens, and whether that might be an addiction to pornography, or it might be being attracted to the same sex, or it might be any number of things, mental illness, depression, whatever. Again, we're all dealing with things. And so me having this on my own, carrying this, I think has allowed me to be more open with people, more accepting of others.
So as you were investigating the church, what role did that attraction? I should say, first of all, thank you for sharing and for being open and vulnerable here with me and on this channel. And as you were investigating the church, and as your faith has grown and changed, what role has that played, that attraction?
It's anchored me in some ways, where it's allowed me to realize that I'm human and I make mistakes. I used to not like myself. I used to be upset that I was different, that I couldn't connect as well with guys. You know, in high school, like I had a lot more girl friends than I did male friends. But the church, one thing it helped me out with is I was able to establish a lot of really healthy, strong male role models and mentors and friends. And that was incredibly important for me. And I think that helped me see that I wanted to be a man of God. And it helped me to see that I don't personally believe that God or Jesus Christ are discriminatory. And they say, I'm sorry, you're not welcome because of this. Now, certainly there are standards and there are laws and commandments, but it's always hate the sin, not the sinner. And I'm not going to go into there personally and say, I believe that I have a sin, because I don't know that necessarily I see it as a sin. I think maybe acting upon that maybe could be seen as a sin, but that's maybe a more of a gray area for me.
Well, yeah, a second ago, you mentioned that this has helped you, it grounds you, and it helps you to remember that you make mistakes. And I wondered, are you referring to your attraction as the mistake, or more of the way you judged yourself and loathed your own person and feelings as the mistake? Which of those two is the mistake that you would?
The latter. I don't believe that I was made a mistake. I don't believe that I chose to feel attracted, or the attractions that I have. I don't believe that was something that I chose. I think that's something that was given to me. Like somebody has bad eyesight, which I have too, or somebody has any number of things. But it's mainly my thought about myself and what I could or couldn't do. Like we mentioned before, that lie of the adversary of not being worthy enough, not being good enough, and that's something that still at times I struggle with. I think, am I being real? Because for me, that's one of the biggest lies that I have to face is culturally and it just within our country and whatnot. That's a thing that most people feel is that most people aren't open to or understanding is this attraction and how that plays out, and they feel that it is wrong and that I'm going to hell or something. And I think to myself, I said, well, if I never told you that, if you never knew that about me, and you just were to maybe judge or evaluate me on the way that I strive to be a disciple of Christ, would that influence you or would that change your mind? And I think for most people, the answer is, yeah, I guess. If I didn't know that, then I probably wouldn't think anything negative or bad. But now that I know, it's kind of like I know that, or I feel like that's a bad thing, being attracted to somebody. And it really is. I need to clarify again the acting out, right? So
Yeah, how do you reconcile that, as you said, with your choice to marry my sister and start a family in that way? What are your thoughts there? Are you being yourself, your authentic self? Are you denying your authentic self the way God made you?
I think that's a good question. And I think that this is a question that I can only answer for myself and my own personal experience. And I can't blanket and say that everybody feels this way or has had a similar experience. But for me, the answer is I am living authentically to myself. Because one, I don't really like labeling myself. But two, the greatest label that I hold is that of being a child of God, that I have infinite worth. And that is irregardless of any quirks or challenges or shortcomings that I may have. I had acted out on my attraction shortly after actually being baptized. And that was one thing that really hurt me in a way because, I had tried for so long and I wasn't a member, and for 4 years I was so, resilient and I was brave and I was, I was able to be stronger than those attractions and those feelings. And, and then I was baptized and that happened. And I just felt, I was like, was all this for nothing? I was worried about losing everything that I had gained, my knowledge, my friendships, God's love, all those things. And I realized that repentance is a real and powerful thing too. And that has changed me. And I'm continually changing because of that. I actually had to go through a number of additional steps and interviews and stuff before going on my mission, and had the opportunity to meet with a general authority I won't name, but I got to meet with him and tell him my story and my experience of what happened. And I just felt loved. And at the end of us meeting together, and him seeing, could I do a mission? Was it okay? Was I going to endanger anybody or anything or myself? He said, Joseph, what's your greatest desire? What do you want more than anything? And I told him, I just want to have a family. That's my greatest desire. And he looked at me and he kind of had a little twinkle in his eyes and he said, okay. And he walked over to me and he's placed his hands on my head and he gave me a blessing. And he blessed me that my greatest desires would be able to be fulfilled. And that's something that is what keeps me going. When I met your sister, she's an incredible person, a wonderful human being, very loving, very sweet and kind, and I loved being with her in the way that she made me feel. And I had never felt about a woman before the way that I did about my wife. And, we were before we were engaged. We were talking one time, and I told her, I said, I need to tell you something. We need some full disclosure.
There's
And
the family that you wanted.
That's right. And so I told her about this experience. I told her about my attractions, and I said, I know that this is a deal breaker. And I said, you need to know this, because this is going to be a struggle, and it's going to be something that you'll have to carry, a burden you'll have to carry with me if you're willing. And if you're not, I want you to know that, and I want you to be okay with that. And then we'll break up and whatnot. And when I told her that, she said she saw me kind of as a little boy, like a little child, that just felt like scared, alone. And she said it didn't change the way that she saw me, because she saw who I was. And again, very powerful and important. And for me, a very strong impression that this is what I needed. And it's been wonderful, because we're very open in our relationship, and we can talk about feelings, or what's working or what's not working, and how we can approach things. For one thing, I can talk about as far as intimacy. Intimacy is very important to me, but sexual intimacy per se is not very strong or important to me. And so for me, I think that allows me, a lot of couples, they get married, and it's not until they're like elderly that they have that different kind of love for one another, right? Or that kind of more intimacy or tenderness, if you will. And I feel like in some ways I was able to start off my marriage in that way, with that kind of approach. And it has grown and it's changed. And, I've mentioned to Jordy before that I still have the attractions, but maybe the frequency of them, or the intensity to which I used to have those feelings or thoughts are different. And so, like I said, this is my own personal experience, and this is how it's been for me. I did not get married to fix a problem. I didn't think I was broken. I knew that it was going to be hard, and my wife knew that it was going to be hard too. And we were just willing to work out it together. And because we both have similar goals, because we both desire that family, then we're able to learn and grow.
Is it in any way offensive to you personally, or does it strike you as an unfair comparison when I share with you, as I've done in the past, that I consider, you said at the very, very beginning that your feelings of attraction toward men have helped you to see others in a different light, and to be, I suppose, less judgmental. And I feel that, my own struggles and problems are the same. I'm so grateful that I've had them, because I'm able to look at others with a little more compassion and understanding, because we're not perfect and I'm not perfect. And so when you share your feelings and your experience, my mind goes to my own feelings and experience. I am not attracted to men, but I'm attracted to women in general, and I'm attracted to, and I have been, I've used pornography numerous times in the past, and struggled with that throughout my teenage years, struggled with complete self-loathing and hatred. You mentioned your experience after being baptized, and that you had been so good, you said, for so long, and then got baptized, and then you felt as if it may have all been a waste, because that's when you acted out on those desires. And and the self-loathing and self-hatred must have intensified then. And I had my experience with my own sexuality and, again, self-loathing, was this cycle of some spiritual experience. Sundays were always wonderful, and Mondays were terrible. Mondays were an intense day of temptation and pull towards my sexual nature. And that the funny thing is that you bring this up in our video today, and today is Sunday, although this will be posted later during the week. But I had a thought about that today. For whatever reason in church, I was feeling the Spirit again, and I'm not recalling what it was that came to my mind, but this idea, I think it was something in the hymn of Lord, I Would Follow Thee, that triggered a remembrance of the days in the past where the Monday after would be so hard. And it's not that way anymore. It's kind of interesting. Like you said, you've grown to this point where those kinds of feelings and emotions, and to express yourself in a way that you've decided you don't want to, that the pull and the temptation to do things that you have now decided you don't want to do has lessened. And that same thing is true for me. And I say that, I don't think of myself either as any kind of a mistake. To be attracted to whom I'm attracted to is just me. And to desire the sexual experiences and to be attracted to sex in whatever way the biology within me works is just me. And that's okay. And I'm not, Lucifer tells me, as we said at the beginning of this, he says, you're not enough and you're dirty and you can't be saved. And I just look at him and I say, not look at him, but I just respond back, I'm a child of God. Like you said, I have infinite worth. God sent his son to die for me. And I am more than enough because of that, because of his atoning blood, and his blood is enough. I don't have to be perfect. Okay. So what I wanted to ask is, if I say, I feel like I can relate, I feel like just my, pull towards heterosexual, experiences outside my marriage. Sometimes I'm tempted to look at other women who I'm not married to and think dirty thoughts. Sometimes I'm tempted to go look at pornography, and I relate that and I say, I don't feel like that's much different than what you're experiencing. Sure, most people say that's more normal, but it just, I'm not going to go act on those things. What I want to know is from you, does that, is that an appropriate response I'm having where I feel like I can relate, or is that something certainly I can't relate to because this is so different? Please be honest with me.
I don't think that it does fully relate, but I think that it relates enough. It's kind of like if somebody loses, if there's death in the family or something like that, going to them and saying, well, I lost my cousin, or I lost my grandma, you experience something similar in losing somebody, but that's not maybe helpful, or that doesn't maybe relate in that circumstance. And I'm not, by any means saying that, belittling what you said, because I do think that it relates in the sense that, yeah, we recognize that God is ultimately in charge and that we are his children and that we have divine worth. And I think that is the importance of the relationship. And it's related in the sense that we can say, okay, this has opened our minds up a little bit more and allows us to be a little bit more compassionate. So I think that it does relate in that way. But as far as comparing the sensations or the feelings or the desires, I don't know. Personally, I can't say. Because I don't know what goes in your hand. I don't know what that's like to have that kind of swing or that kind of pull.
Okay.
But
would it be better than in general when dealing with people in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints who, like you, experience attraction, same gender attraction, and they've chosen to live in accordance with gospel teachings that I don't share that similar of a relationship, or is it something that I should, try to draw from my own experience to relate to and express, or is it something that I should not try to connect? Just what would be? I'm trying to learn from you how I should be.
I appreciate that. And again, this is what we're talking about, right? Being more open and being more sensitive and empathetic, and I appreciate that. Again, I can only share with you from my experience, and my answer is I don't know. My answer is I think that you'll have to take that in a case by case. It's going to depend on your relationship with the person, how well you know them, and those sort of things. And if you feel like it would be appropriate to share them, certainly. Anytime we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and share is a good thing. And I'm learning that more and more because I've shared this with a few individuals, and I've been scared every time. I've been worried about them seeing me differently, about them, not liking me or saying, well, I don't want my kids to be around that guy, or whatever the case may be, right? Um, or, oh, I can't be friends with him anymore. But every time I've shared, um, what I found is that people are like, oh, okay. And it's not uncommon for me to share that and somebody say, oh, well, I already knew that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. I didn't share that with you. How do you know? It's like, well, we can tell kind of thing. So, which then we just get to laugh about um, later. So, um,
Well, thank you for, again, being vulnerable and open, and for sharing your faith journey and your struggles. I really appreciate it. I would add that, I mean, as you and I have both said, we're children of God. I want you to know that I do know that you're a child of God with infinite worth, and that your Father protects you and he provides for you. He takes care of you, and God loves you and God accepts you. Joe completely loves you and accepts you as you are. And you're always, always more than enough. And I know that you're a completely unique expression of God's creation. And I hope you do fully love and accept yourself. And I love you, and I'm grateful that you would take this time to be with me. And I'm grateful also for the gospel and for the challenges and the trials. I would point out that, like I said, I firmly believe that through my teenage years, and I mean, this has come up now 3 times in this call, but I think one of the biggest struggles that all of us face is this acceptance of ourself, this realization that God loves us, this realization that he wants to save us, that it's his work and his glory to bring to pass our immortality and eternal life. And he'll do it if we'll just let him, if we want it, you know? And
I think that's the key, is that desire. Like I said, I had that blessing before I went on my mission, and what I desired most above all was to have my own eternal family. And our desires are important things. And I just want to thank you again for your time, and for you being vulnerable too. I know that that's not an easy thing, and so thanks again for your time.
all right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.